Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. Today, we're doing something a little different. Have you been feeling a little bit of burnout in your hobby? I know I was. Today, we talk about how I got over it. Maybe it'll help you figure it out too. This is how I accidentally created the movement grunge painting. A few Sundays ago, I needed to get some work done on a model. I didn't care what that model was or how well I was going to paint it. I needed to do something to break my routine. My 2020 started out with me focusing on working on my Resin Beast piece for Adepticon, of which I feel like I did a really good job on the twins. I know that it wasn't probably a first place piece, but the goal wasn't to win first place. The goal was to be able to meet my hobby heroes and see what beautiful competition pieces look like in person. While it was a huge blow to lose Adepticon this year and not be able to take my Resin Beast piece in, it felt really good finishing a piece like that. So when I heard that Resin Beast was going to be happening again on Instagram, I jumped at the chance to do a new model. And a lot of people asked why I wasn't going to just turn in the model that I did earlier this year. And my just initial response was, I'm a better painter than I was at the beginning of the year. So I was very excited to do something new. I chose to do the Queen of Onslaught, which I think turned out fantastic. Again, it may not be a first place model, but I feel like I made people notice me a little bit with this model. I tried a lot of new techniques, and it was really fun. And I don't get a whole lot of time to paint anymore during the week, so I did almost all of this live on Twitch. I do Twitch on Sundays at 12 o'clock, usually Central Time, and I paint for about 3 hours, sometimes a little more, but it's about as much as I can do to handle chat and paint. It can wear you out, but it is a good motivator. You get to see your work getting done, and you get to interact with people, and sometimes it can be lonely while hobbying. A big part of COVID-19 hurting my hobby is that it removed my social aspect of painting with friends, which I used to do every Sunday anyway. Now, on Twitch, one of my favorite things to do, and I know that I shouldn't do it, I can get into a lot of trouble doing it, is I like to play whatever music I see fit. A couple of Sundays ago, we got into an argument of which band is better, Soundgarden or Alice in Chains. Now, in my book, I think that they are both equals and very good, but also we all know that the true answer is Soundgarden is the better band, even though I love Alice in Chains. We got just talking about the merits of grunge and music, and it made me realize that this speed paint that I was doing was essentially the visual representation of what the grunge music movement meant spiritually back in the 90s. If you were going to ask me if I was going to start a painting movement, my gut reaction would be to tell you that my painting movement would be called punk painting, even though my favorite style of punk was more politically charged. Dead Kennedys, Bad Religion, DOA, Subhumans, or just the raw, visceral nature of Black Flag. I don't believe that I hit those levels yet, and maybe someday I will. Maybe somebody is doing it now, and I hope to find out. But what I realized is that the style of painting that I do is more along the lines of the 90s grunge movement. It was more artistic than punk, but it lacked the technical mastery of all the hair metal bands in the 80s. You had bands like Pearl Jam, who did stuff very different but were very polished, Or you had bands like Nirvana sitting right next to them who were raw and artistic and a force to be reckoned with. That is more the style of painting that I believe that I lie in. And it made me start to realize that Tenacious D had it right. In their song, Rock Your Socks, it doesn't matter if it's good, it only matters if it rocks. And that is when I took inspiration from important pieces of my life and applied them to my painting. And thus, grunge painting was born. Grunge painting is supposed to be a way for you to speed paint, but also push your technical mastery. I tried doing non-metallic metal on this kitty, of which I suck at gold non-metallic metal. But I felt that it was important that I push myself. If I'm going to be painting, I might as well push myself. But truthfully, I just needed to get a model done. So I gave myself a really short amount of time. I basically gave myself 3 hours to get this piece done. And while it isn't a perfect piece, it makes me happy. So the way I make grunge painting work for myself is taking my first idea and acting on it like it's my best idea, and just running at it, and don't second guess yourself. It doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you won't need to stop and turn mid job, but that is something that happens. I absolutely messed up on this piece and, painted the green wrong and had to reblend it. But because I work thin, and because I work fast, it doesn't matter. Now, something that people forget about the 90s is that the 90s were dirty and the 90s were dangerous. Even the most milquetoast soda had the edgiest tagline. Image is nothing, thirst is everything, obey your thirst, Sprite. So the way that I felt that I needed to live on the edge was pulling out my Mr. Weathering multi-black oil wash and putting it all over this model. I didn't coat it with a varnish, I didn't protect it in any way, I just went straight onto the model to get it nice and dirty and get it that nice lived-in effect. To me, this was the trick that caused my grunge painting experiment to go from just a normal speed paint to something that really elevated it to the next level. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and buy a bunch of new products to make grunge painting work, although a good oil wash goes a long way. More just saying, get messy, get in there. If you have mistakes, leave them. Don't be worried about the details. The details will come together by pushing yourself to execute in a timely manner. And every time you come back and every time you do this, you will get better. You will learn from your efforts, your trials, and your tribulations. And here we are at the end of the model, and I love what I came up with. It is far from perfect, and it's far from over. But I feel like I broke my hobby rut. I tried something new. I forced myself to get something done, and I really liked the outcome. It was a lot of fun to see how differently my pieces look versus 3 hours versus 60 hours. My 3-hour piece will probably never win a competition, but because I pushed myself through the boundary of self-doubt, I was able to get a piece done that looked really cool, and I feel good to have it on my shelf. And it doesn't mean I won't go back and fix it again later, but for what it is, I'm really proud of it. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of my Patreons who have supported me thus far. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you. Sinister Grackle, Warhammer OK, John Aitken, Kevin Zeller, Ben Bolin, Nevik Eats Paints, Anzig 138, Impending Duff, Jasper, Philip Palla, Isaac Eccles, Thomas Hook, Brett Cocker, James Hunt, Zach Bailey, and Zen for One. Thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate your support.